Yeah, that's an absolute shame about Texas and Alabama losing this past weekend. I mean, that means we have to totally shake up the top 25, the top 10, top 15. Dang, that's a real shame for those two fan bases, too. Anyway, it is Monday, and it is time to update the top 25. We're going to do that today, now that week 12 is in the books already. Wow. Headed to week 13. 2 weeks of the regular season left, then conference championship Saturday, and then, of course, we'll have the playoff selections in about a month and a half of playoff games or whatever it is from December through basically the end of January. But today's Monday. Let's update the top 25. Today's top 25 Loutube ranking is brought to you by Sleeper.
Sleeper is the #1 fantasy sports app. It pays to know sports. Pick more or less on top players. Your first pick is on us, so start winning now. Play in Texas, Georgia, Minnesota, and 27 more states. Pick anytime across all sports, pregame or live. Over 10 million players are already on Sleeper. Make your picks count. Score up to 1,000 times your cash. Join today. Get up to $100 credit using code LOU. Call your shot on Sleeper. Download now.
All right, here you go. New rankings right there. Bang! The new top 25 headed into week 13. Yeah, we got some changes. Some teams moving up, some teams moving down. Kept Ohio State 1, Indiana 2, Texas A&M 3. Texas A&M, of course, narrowly averting disaster this past weekend at home against South Carolina. There's a weird scheduling anomaly going on with Texas A&M. Now, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with how good Texas A&M is. A team is as good as they are. Okay, but this is for the who have they played people. Texas A&M's 6 or 7, whatever it is, SEC wins this year in conference are against the 6 or 7 bottom teams in the SEC standings. They haven't played Georgia. They haven't played Bama. They haven't played Ole Miss. They haven't played Tennessee. Now, that's just a weird scheduling anomaly. It doesn't mean that Texas A&M's not any good, and that's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. It's just the fact of the schedule and how it worked out this year for Texas A&M. They've got a win over Notre Dame. That's obviously a really good win. And they did win again this past weekend, one of the best second-half comebacks, not just this season, but in all of SEC history. You got to go back a long time to find another comeback like that. They were down 30-3 at halftime at home to lowly South Carolina. And they did manage to come back and get the win, 31-30, outscoring South Carolina 28-0 in the second half, and remaining undefeated at 10-0. They, of course, have that huge matchup with Texas looming in a couple of weeks. They play Sam Ford, whoever the hell that is, this coming weekend. Speaking of Sam Ford, and you're going to see as we go through here, a lot of these SEC teams are playing these woozies here towards the end of the season. Hopefully, this is the last season of that. The SEC is going to 9 conference games starting next year. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't schedule one of these crappy games in November. I guess maybe they still could and add a conference game in September when they're normally playing some other crappy team. I'm hoping, though, that these November games against the FCS teams are going to go away. That's what I'm hoping. We know they're going to 9 conference games. What we don't know is which of the non-con games are going to sort of get replaced. Will it be this one, which I'm hoping it will, or will it be one early in the season, or will the teams get to choose? We'll find all that out soon enough, but I know people are going to complain about a lot of these games. I've been complaining about them for years. I know a lot of SEC people wanted to stay at 8 games. I'm not that person. I've been on record wanting 9 conference games for a long, long time. I've been on record against these November games for a long, long time. Hopefully this is the last season we have to put up with that. Texas A&M does play Sam Ford, though, this coming weekend, Samford. And then the big game at the end of the year against Texas, which is obviously going to be massive. Ohio State took care of business against UCLA. UCLA down to the backup quarterback. Nico had to sit this game out with a concussion. And Ohio State gets another easy win, 48-10 over UCLA. Indiana dispatched of Wisconsin, 31-7. Indiana's on a bye week this week. UCLA playing, or Ohio State, I'm sorry, playing Rutgers. At number 4, Georgia moves up to 4. Georgia's been kind of stuck behind Bama in my ranking because you know my philosophy. When two teams have the same record and they played, the team that won has to be ranked higher. The games that you play have to matter. Georgia and Bama played. Bama won the game. This was early in the season, way back in September. And since then, Georgia and Bama have had the same record, 1 loss each. So I've had Georgia behind Bama every single week, no matter how good or bad Georgia looked, or no matter how good or bad Bama looked week over week. I constantly had Bama ahead of Georgia because Bama won the game and they had the same record. Well, of course, Bama lost this past weekend. They now have 2 losses. Georgia still just with the 1 loss, a home loss to Alabama by 3. Georgia, probably their most impressive game of the season this past weekend at home against Texas. They win 35-10, just a dominating game really from start to finish. They were up 14-3 early in the game and then scored 21 straight points in the fourth quarter to pull away and beat Texas 35-10, move Georgia from 5 to 4. Basically, everybody moved up a spot because I had Alabama at 4. So Ole Miss moves up. Or Texas Tech, I'm sorry, is the next team on my list. I moved Texas Tech up to 5. They beat Central Florida this past week, 48-9. They're on a bye this coming week. Ole Miss, I've got it 6 in my ranking. They beat Florida 34-24, kind of a struggle win. They scored a touchdown in that game late. It was a 3-point lead for Ole Miss late into the fourth quarter of that game before they scored a touchdown to pull away 34-24 against maybe Lane's future team, the Florida Gators. Ole Miss is on a bye week. Ole Miss is on a bye week this coming week before the Egg Bowl. I've got Oregon here at 7. I think Oregon is a good team. I don't know how good they are. They've got that loss to Indiana. I felt like Indiana kind of handled them in that game, a home game for Oregon. Since then, they do have that win at Iowa, which I do think that was an impressive win for Oregon at Iowa. There were terrible weather conditions there on the road. It seemed like the perfect sort of scenario for Iowa to pull that off, and Oregon got the win. They followed it up this past weekend with a dominating win over Minnesota, 42-13. So I've got them here at number 7. Now they play Southern Cal this coming week, probably the game of the week, maybe the game of the year in the Big Ten. I think this will determine who gets the 3rd playoff spot in the Big Ten. I think the winner of this game between Southern Cal and Oregon has 1 loss, Southern Cal has 2. I think the winner of this game is almost definitely going to be that 3rd playoff spot out of the Big Ten. So a massive game coming up this week for both Oregon and Southern Cal. I've got Oregon at 7. I've got BYU at 8. They still only have the 1 loss, and it's to what I think could be one of the best teams in the country, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech is really, really good. I think they can compete with anybody in the country. I don't look at Texas Tech's Big 12 logo and dismiss it like some people do. I think Texas Tech is a legitimate threat in any game they play, whether it's regular season, playoffs, Bama, Georgia, Indiana, Ohio State, Texas A&M, whoever. I think Texas Tech is really good. They might have the best defensive player in college football this year, that linebacker Rodriguez. Their offense hums when that quarterback is healthy, and fingers crossed, but right now he is healthy. And they won big again this past weekend, 48-9. They've beat everybody they've played by 24 points or more, with the exception of their only loss that came on the road at Arizona State when they had to play a backup quarterback because Morton was hurt. Everybody else they have ran through like they weren't there, including BYU. So I think Texas Tech is really, really good. BYU does have a loss to them, but that's their only loss. So I've got BYU sitting here at number 8. They beat TCU 44-13 this past weekend. They play on the road at Cincinnati coming up this week. Oklahoma, I moved up to 9 and dropped Bama down to 10. So again, the sort of same record rule here. Oklahoma and Bama now have the same record. I've seen them play. One team beat the other, so that team's got to be ahead of the team they beat. So I've got Oklahoma here at 9. And I've got Alabama at 10. Oklahoma beats Alabama 23-21 on the road in Tuscaloosa. They play Missouri this coming week. Missouri, I believe, is still ranked in the AP. I don't have Missouri ranked. I don't think they're one of the best 25 teams in the country. I think Drinkwitz might be the most overrated coach in the country. I mean, anyway, we don't need to get into that. But they do play Missouri this coming week. Alabama at 10 after that loss at home to Oklahoma. They play Eastern Illinois before the Iron Bowl coming up here in a couple of weeks. At number 11, I've got Vandy. Vandy was on a bye this past week, I believe. Yeah, Vandy was on a bye. They host Kentucky this coming weekend, so they should win that one, and then they end the season in a couple of weeks against in-state rival Tennessee, which will be a massive game for Vandy if they want to try to get into the playoffs with an at-large spot. I've got Georgia Tech at 12. They've got the best record of any team in the ACC. They're sitting on just the one loss now. They beat Boston College, but boy, they flirted with disaster. Come from behind win on the road at a terrible Boston College team. Georgia Tech wins 36-34. Boston College is a one-win team. Georgia Tech's got a game with Georgia coming up in a couple of weeks, but before that, they have to play Pitt. They play Pitt this weekend, and I know Pitt got destroyed by Notre Dame this past weekend, who we'll talk about in a minute. But when it comes to the ACC, Pitt is one of the better teams. Now, that's because the ACC isn't very good, but this is going to be an interesting game here between Georgia Tech and Pitt. I think this is a must-win game for Georgia Tech. There's a possibility the ACC could miss the college football playoff. One of their only remaining hopes is Georgia Tech and maybe Virginia. Anybody besides Georgia Tech and Virginia that wins the ACC, I think it's possible the ACC gets left out. So Georgia Tech needs to win this game, and we'll see. But I've got Georgia Tech there at number 12. Same thing as last week. I'll explain it again. Virginia beat Louisville. Okay. Louisville beat Miami. Miami beat Notre Dame. Notre Dame beat Southern Cal. Southern Cal beat Michigan. Because of that, this order of teams is not going to change. Now, I did drop Louisville out because they took a third loss. But the rest of these teams that I just named played. They all have the same record. Games matter to me. Games matter. Notre Dame and Miami have the same record. Miami won the game. I can't rank Notre Dame ahead of Miami. I just can't. So I've got Miami there at 14. You have to have Notre Dame behind them, so I've got them at 15. Notre Dame beat Southern Cal. Southern Cal had a good win this week against Iowa. I can't move Southern Cal ahead of Notre Dame because I saw them play and Notre Dame won the game. So Southern Cal at 16. I saw Southern Cal beat Michigan, so I've got Michigan at 18. Utah's kind of the one in the middle there. I think Utah might be one of the best 10 or 15 teams in the country. I think they're really, really good. They're very well coached, but they're third in the Big 12, and they lost to the two better teams, BYU and Texas Tech. So to me, Utah's kind of on the outside looking in at everything, Big 12 championship as well as potential college football playoff. But that's why these teams are in the order that they are. Now, it's possible Miami moves up a lot. Virginia beat Duke 34-17, and they're on a bye. They're probably going to make the ACC championship game, barring some sort of disaster against a bad Virginia Tech team at the end of the year. And then it's going to be either Georgia Tech or Pitt, I guess, in the ACC championship game. It's a mess. But there is a scenario where Miami could miss the ACC championship game at 10-2, but still get into the playoffs at 10-2. But I think they're going to need some help. They're going to need some teams ahead of them to lose. They're going to need maybe Tennessee to knock off Vandy, maybe Auburn to knock off an Alabama, maybe Oklahoma stumbles in one of their last two games. They play, I think, Missouri and LSU in their last two. BYU taking another loss would clearly help Miami. And if Miami can get up into the top 12 or close to the top 10, then that means we can then move Notre Dame up. Or if Miami loses another game, we can move Notre Dame up. But I can't put Notre Dame ahead of Miami when they have the same record and Miami beat them head-to-head. So I explained it last week. People still cried in the comments. I'm explaining it again. They'll cry again. You can cry next week too. I don't know. Doesn't matter to me. But anyway, so there's that. That's what that is. Miami beat NC State 41-7. They play on the road at Virginia Tech. Notre Dame blew out Pitt. The game wasn't even competitive, 37-15. Notre Dame plays Syracuse this coming week. Southern Cal had a good win over Iowa. Couldn't really reward Southern Cal all that much for that win because they're trapped in my rankings behind Notre Dame because, again, two teams that have the same record and played each other. I can't move Southern Cal ahead of Notre Dame, so they're kind of stuck right there right now at 16. But a win against Oregon sure would look nice for Southern Cal. So we'll see. Utah, just talked about them. Got them at 17. I got them at 17 there. They play Kansas State. They beat Baylor 55-28 this past weekend. Michigan escaped against Northwestern. Probably should have lost that game because of a poor coaching decision. They had an opportunity to kick a game-winning field goal with a couple of minutes to go in the game. 4th and about 4, I think it was, on the 25 or 30-yard line. Instead of kicking a game-winning field goal, Sharon Moore decides to go for it, and they didn't get it. All Northwestern had to do was get a first down, and the game would have been over. They couldn't get a first down, had to punt it back to Michigan. Michigan goes back down and then does kick the field goal, but they almost ruined their entire season there. Remember, no matter what you think about Michigan, they've only got 2 losses total, and they've only got 1 Big Ten loss. So they're still alive for everything, including the Big Ten championship game, playoffs, all of that. Now, they got the Ohio State game, of course, coming up at the end of the year. They play on the road at Maryland this week, so we'll see how they finish out, but that's where they sit right now. Texas, I dropped all the way down there to number 19. That, of course, was their 3rd loss, and it's their 2nd bad loss. The first bad loss is to Florida. That's a bad loss because Florida's a terrible team. This loss to Georgia is bad because it got dominated. It wasn't even close. Their loss to Ohio State was at least close on the road in Columbus week 1. You can sort of make some excuses for that one if you want to, if you're a Texas fan, but those other 2 losses, that really hurts. There's some people out there that think Texas has a chance to get into the playoffs if they can beat Texas A&M the last week of the regular season. I don't see it. I don't think they have the resume, even at 9-3, because of that loss to Florida in particular, to get back into the playoff race. I think they're pretty much done in terms of the playoffs. They host Arkansas this coming weekend. I've got James Madison at 20, and they could be headed to the playoffs. They've only got 1 loss. They're the highest-ranked G5 team, I believe, in the AP ranking that came out yesterday. You can see they're the highest-ranked G5 team in my ranking as well, which would, it doesn't matter where they're ranked. If they win their conference, they'll move up to the 12 seed in that playoff. I think everybody understands that now. North Texas and Tulane, I think, still have a shot to jump James Madison, though. They're probably going to play in that conference championship game. Whoever wins, that will be a really good win. Could vault them over James Madison into the playoff spot, but that's where it sits right now with the group of 5, James Madison, North Texas, and Tulane. 23, I've got Tennessee because, to be honest with you, I'm running out of teams that I think deserve to be in the top 25. Tennessee's best win is Mississippi State. They're 7-3, which is a decent record, right? They beat New Mexico State this past weekend 42-9. Whoopity-doo. Their best win is Mississippi State. They lost to Georgia. They lost to Bama. They lost to Oklahoma. Lost every ranked team they've played. Houston, it's a similar thing there. You look at Houston, their record says, oh, maybe they're a top 25 team, but then you watch them play and they don't necessarily look like it. Navy lost by 40 to Notre Dame, but they've got a chance to make their conference championship game, so you slide them in there. I think it's, Iowa. I think Iowa might be one of the best 25 teams in the country, but they got a lot of losses. So I thought about putting Iowa in the 25 spot. What about Washington? Washington and Illinois are both 7-3, but again, can anybody tell me what their good wins are? It's kind of like, it's like with Tennessee. What is so I don't know. There's 5 or 6 other teams that could easily be here at 23, 24, and 25. But that's how it came down for me this week. So anyway, there you go. That's my updated top 25. Let me know what you think down below. The playoff committee releases their 2nd set of rankings tomorrow night, Tuesday night. And then I'll have a call-in show tomorrow night at 9 o'clock so we can talk about it. But anyway, I do appreciate you watching. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're new, and have a good morning.